Hi folks, the Filipina P here. And today I'm going to talk about something I see all the time. Guys who focus on the first woman they talk to and then convince themselves that she's perfect, she's just what they always wanted, and they've finally found their soulmate. But are soulmates even real? And why do so many guys become instantly obsessed right off the bat? The Philippines has millions of potential mates. So why settle for just one only days after you get here? Or sometimes, you end up engaged before you even get on the plane. Before we get going, I want to thank you folks who found my channel again after all the recent problems with YouTube. A lot of you folks were automatically unsubscribed, so for those of you who haven't already done so, please click on my profile picture so you can make sure you're a subscriber. You'll also see the notification bell where you can select all so that you never miss another one of my videos. You might also want to visit my Patreon page where I hang out with you guys every day and give you free advice about everything to do with the Philippines, including the women. Okay, so for today's video, let me ask you a really important question. Do you believe in the one, the soulmate, the person you were put on this earth to be with, a partner who's your destiny? We've all had a friend who breathlessly tells us that finally they met their one and only, even though they said the same thing 5 times before. So what is the perfect mate? Is it really a once-in-a-lifetime thing? And if there's no such thing as a soulmate, how can you tell if a person you're interested in is close enough? Now, you've heard me say that Filipinas can make great companions, and when you haven't had a fulfilling relationship in years, we look like a pretty good deal. We have exotic looks, and we have a reputation for pleasing our men, so it's understandable that some of you become infatuated pretty quickly. And it happens the other way too. We might think we love you after just a few phone calls from halfway around the world before we even meet you in person. But why do we focus on just one person like that? Well, a lot of you guys will probably think of the term Oneitis, which is when you put blinders on and only have one woman on your radar. You put her on a pedestal and you only see her good traits while you totally ignore all the red flags. She becomes an unhealthy obsession that makes a man think she's the only one in the world who can make him happy. And the thought of losing her makes him panic. It causes a man to lose his own identity, his dignity, and even his property. Now, if you're one of those guys who are guilty of Oneitis, but your relationship actually worked out, then that's wonderful. You got lucky. Don't rock the boat. Just enjoy the ride for as long as it goes. And if things are really that good, then you'll sail off into the sunset together and die in each other's arms. But what I'm seeing far more often is something completely different. Most of you jump on a dating site within 5 seconds of deciding to take a look at the Philippines. And in the first 24 hours, you get a few hundred messages from very determined Filipinas. You try to answer as many women as you can, but within a few weeks, you narrow it down to 3 or 4 favorites. And at the end of the month, you often realize that somehow you've got a steady girlfriend or even a fiancé, and you haven't even seen her in person. You stop talking to anyone else and you start making plans for the rest of your life with a virtual stranger. How did that happen? Now, if you're actually considering marrying someone you barely know, you really might want to rethink that. I mean, would you buy a house you'd never even been inside? Now, you might think I'm talking about sex, and maybe I am, because unless you're a person who believes in no hanky-panky before marriage, then don't you want to see if you're compatible in that department too? It's kind of important, right? But how are you going to do that when you're engaged to a Filipina you barely know? Don't you think it might be smart to look around at other options? What's the rush? I know a lot of you guys are men of action, and when you see something you want, you go for it. Now, that might work great on a battlefield or in the boardroom, but it'll work against you in the game of love. Slow down and smell the roses. Smell a lot of roses. But even when you guys come here with boots on the ground, a lot of you end up getting laser focused on just one woman way too fast. And you don't seem to notice all the bad stuff about her. Stuff that seems obvious to anyone on the outside. It's like you make excuses for things so you can keep this perfect image in your head, and you'll twist yourself into a pretzel to keep it that way. Let me give you an example. I just got a message from this guy who wanted my advice about the Filipina he was talking to. When they first started chatting, she said she had 2 kids, and even though that wasn't exactly what he was looking for, they ended up getting involved, and you know what happened from there. Now he can't live without her, blah blah blah. But he found out she's actually got 4 children because she adopted her sister's 2 kids after she died. She didn't tell him earlier because she was afraid he'd be mad. So here's this guy that didn't even want kids, who suddenly realizes he's about to end up with a full house. And now he's reaching out to me to ask what he should do. So I tried just about everything to make him see the light. I explained the song cost fallacy, and I told him to take a step back and think about things. But like a lot of guys, he only wanted me to say what he wanted to hear. This guy had a bad case of Oneitis, and I flat out asked him, "Why are you with this woman? What's so special about her?" And all I kept hearing is, "Well, I love her, and she's the only one for me." Now, it's nice to see 2 people in love, but dude, there are millions of Filipinas. Do you really think she's the only one you could possibly fall in love with? And imagine if she'd never been born. Do you think you'd be single forever and never find a mate? Of course not. I think we have many soulmates, which to me is just a romantic word for a partner who makes a really good match. It's a little naive to believe there's only one person who's right for you. And if you just think about it for a second, you'll see why. What are the chances that you actually met your soulmate in high school or at work or anywhere in your entire city? What a coincidence that would be! And how convenient! With nearly 8 billion people on the planet, wouldn't it be just as likely that your soulmate is a sheep herder in Afghanistan that you'll never meet? Now, that's not to say that people are interchangeable or that relationships are disposable. Having a solid partnership can transform your entire life, and being in a committed, loving relationship is just about as good as it gets. But it's pretty obvious there's a lot more than just one person to fall in love with. So if that's the case, how do you find your best matches? Well, this is gonna sound really unromantic, but don't fall in love first and then make excuses to justify things when it's not working. Trying to pound your square peg into a round hole is never gonna be a permanent solution. Instead, do the same thing you do when you're researching where to invest your money, or choosing a job, or buying a car. Look at the big picture and ask yourself what your needs are and what you really want. If you want a big house in the province, why go looking at condos in the city? Same thing with a woman and a relationship. If you don't want to spend the next decade raising someone else's kids, then why would you consider a woman who has 4 little ones? It just doesn't make sense. But that's how a lot of you guys do it. You let yourselves get involved with a woman who was never right for you in the first place, and it's usually because of the way she looks. Now I get it. You want to have someone you're physically attracted to, someone who's easy on the eyes. That's a prerequisite for a lot of people, but it doesn't guarantee a healthy long-term relationship. And I hear a lot of guys saying, "No big deal. Once I find out she's not who I thought she was, I'll just pick another one." That sounds great, but the problem is that by the time you realize there's trouble in paradise, it can be really hard to get yourself out of it because you're already in love. It's much better to just play the field at first and interview a bunch of women without getting into deep emotionally. So what are the signs that a Filipina's a keeper? Well, like we said, that depends on what you're looking for. But I can tell you some things that are pretty good indicators that she's for real and not some flake that'll end up breaking your heart. I know that dealing with a Filipina can seem more complicated than flying a jumbo jet, but at least you got me as your co-pilot. So here's something a lot of people don't think about, but it's actually really important. Look for a woman who asks questions about you and seems genuinely interested in what you have to say. That seems kind of obvious, but you'd be amazed at the number of guys who say that their Filipina girlfriend seems totally disinterested in their past or even his family or his kids. We Filipinos aren't very curious sometimes, unless we want to know who else you're texting. So it's a really good sign to find someone who actually wants to know what you're all about. It means she's taking you seriously as a potential mate. And look where she places her priorities. Is she so hung up on her own family that every other sentence mentions a relative? Does she constantly feel the need to be physically close to her clan and wants to drop by her mom's house 5 times a week? If you can, always try to follow the 2 island rule, which means that wherever you settle, it's at least 2 islands away from her folks. That makes the constant travel back and forth impossible. And it also protects you from the famous surprise visit, where an unexpected knock on your door can turn into a weekend of having her family members sleeping on your couch. Like it's your duty to play host at any given minute. But just in case, better stock up on Red Horse and chips. And what's her position within the family? If she's a provider to her folks, then you might end up providing for a lot more people than just her. And if your relationship starts out with you as a philanthropist banker, then trust me, it'll never end. Before long, you'll be sending money to her neighbor-in-law to pay for her grandbrother's funeral. Now, I don't even know what a grandbrother is, but you'll be paying for him. So you might want to find a woman who doesn't come with a bunch of debt. Preferably an orphan, if possible. Another thing you want to do is ask your Filipina what makes her happy, what she wants, and listen to her answer. Does she say something like, I want to love and be loved? Or does she tell you about her favorite food or a handbag that's on sale? Most Filipinos aren't very materialistic, so if you smell a shopaholic, you might want to take a pass. And here's something you might overlook at first, but it can be a pattern that keeps repeating itself. Is the woman you're involved with constantly mixed up in some sort of drama? If she always seems to be feuding with a friend or having trouble with an ex, or doesn't want to go to work because her boss is harassing her, it might be a sign that she does not play well with others. Better to find someone who's emotionally stable and doesn't have more enemies than friends, because it's probably only a matter of time before she's gonna have a problem with you too. But here's the biggie. Is she hiding things about herself or her background? Whenever she says, I don't want to talk about it, and keeps avoiding certain topics, she may have some deep, dark secrets that can affect your relationship, like a child or a husband who's not quite out of the picture. Tell her right off the bat that you expect nothing less than total honesty, and that you're willing to give the same in return. Tell her about your shortcomings, anything she needs to know, and maybe she'll tell you hers too, instead of just denying everything. Filipinas aren't the best liars, and we don't cover our tracks very well, so it's not too hard to catch us in deception. But wouldn't it be so much better just to get it all out in the open from the very beginning? That's the kind of woman you want to find before taking things to the next level. But the biggest things are actually the smallest things, because it's the little stuff that shows if she really cares. Does she remember you had a headache an hour ago and ask if it's gone? Does she give you the bigger piece of the pie for dessert? Does she remember which knee is bothering you and rub it without even thinking about it? Those are the things that really tell how she feels about you. The little things speak the loudest. And I'll trade a dozen roses on Valentine's Day for a good foot massage any day of the week. But the proof is in the pudding. And all this stuff is unknown until you have a chance to be together in person. It takes a little time to fill in all the blanks, and there's no reason to be in a hurry about it. Try dating a lot of Filipinas and see which one suits you the best. Does she subtract from your life or add to it? And keep reminding yourself that there's more than just one, the one. There are lots of different matches out there, so don't get locked down by the first Filipina you run across. You really can have a soulmate, but only after your relationship grows over time. Because soulmates are created, not discovered. Now, if you're a thirsty guy who hasn't had a lot of interaction with women since they all went crazy, then be really careful when you finally encounter Filipinas, because there's a good chance you might become mesmerized, just like my friend Captain Kirk.
Standard orbit, Mr. Pater. Yes, sir.
Planet Omicron, Captain. Code 710.
Code 710 means under no circumstances are we to approach that planet. No circumstances whatsoever.
Omicron is home to a species of long-haired, tan-skinned, supposedly irresistible females called Filipinas.
Paradise. We're going in.
Captain, it might be prudent to first consult the video archives of the Filipina P to study their culture, their mating habits, and their propensity to separate men from their resources. Captain? Problems, Captain? Your visit lasted only 3.8 seconds.
A planet of traitors. Disloyal to the core. Rotten like the rest of you subhuman race.
You were conned. I did warn you, Jim. Now promise me you'll never fall for another what? Very wise, Captain. Preparing to leave orbit.
I can leave.
Captain's log, supplemental. The captain has inexplicably returned to the planet's surface. His final transmission was a hysterical, almost incoherent plea for millions of something called pesos.